I'm Dr. Mac Adkins, founder of SmarterServices. A frequent topic of conversation recently with e-learning directors has been, what factors should our school consider when choosing a proctoring platform? I think it is helpful to take a historical view in answering this question. Proctoring has been around for many decades in many different forms. You had teaching assistants who would assist the professor in proctoring the exam. You have testing centers on colleges and universities that assist with proctoring. And some schools would allow an approved professional like an HR director at a corporation or a pastor of a church. Then, a little more than a decade ago, e-learning necessitated the invention of virtual proctoring, and different forms of virtual proctoring evolved. We started with live virtual proctoring, where a human would watch the student take the test in real time. After that came record and review, where the session was recorded and the student knew that a real human would be reviewing it after the session. Then evolved automated proctoring, where the artificial intelligence was watching the student and flagging anomalies. And now you have new forms such as hybrid proctoring evolving, where the AI detects the anomalies and then triggers someone, such as a test center employee or the instructor himself or herself, to look in live into the proctoring session. COVID-19 during 2020 really prompted the expansion of automated virtual proctoring. This was for a few reasons. First of all, it was a very low price point. Secondly, it was scalable across a large enterprise. Now, educational leaders are planning for proctoring in a post-COVID world. Many of the things that we saw emerge in the COVID environment will persist after COVID has been controlled. There are many students who will continue to prefer e-learning and as such will continue to need virtual proctoring. Schools are seeking systems that meet the needs of multiple constituents. They want to meet the needs of their faculty who want flexibility based on the nature of the exam. Maybe they need a stronger deterrent for high-stakes exams, such as final exams, and then a lower level of deterrent for lower levels of exams, such as midterms. Students and their schools desire a low price point. And finally, test center staff want a system that can utilize their human resources. So, as e-learning directors are seeking proctoring solutions that meet the needs of all of these constituents, here are some of the categories of needs that they should consider: flexibility, features, scalability, standardization, security, and cost. The first thing that a person or a committee of persons needs to do as they are evaluating proctoring solutions is know their own examination needs. You need to know what is the volume of proctoring that you will need. How many courses will contain a proctored exam? What are the number of enrollments in those courses? How many exams are in those courses? And how many faculty will need to be trained and supported? You also need to understand the nature of your exams. Is there variable exam rigor? Do some courses have high-stakes final exams and some not? And what about third-party publisher content that may be in specialized assessment engines that would need to be proctored as well? One key consideration is flexibility. You need to have a proctoring system that can handle multiple modalities of proctoring that are flexible based on the needs of the faculty, their courses, their assessments, and their students. Ideally, you need a proctoring system that manages all modalities of proctoring. That would include the instructor as proctor, a local testing center, a testing center at another institution, perhaps professional testing centers, or a proctoring professional, and the full spectrum of virtual proctoring: automated virtual proctoring, live virtual proctoring, record and review, and hybrid. One of the categories of proctoring that many schools would like to offer their students, but sometimes do not because it is complicated to manage, is that of a proctoring professional. This could be someone such as a pastor at a church, an HR director at a corporation, a librarian. This is a person that the student can go to and they would be observed one-on-one while they take their test. It could also involve a combination of virtual proctoring so that the session itself is recorded as further evidence of the proctoring session. This modality is often used when paper-based exams are needed to demonstrate work for math or engineering courses. What is needed is a system that manages the approval of these proctoring professionals, as well as all of the communication that needs to take place between the faculty member, the proctoring professional, and the student. Obviously, as you are considering proctoring options, there are several essential features that you want to ask about. First of all is integration into your particular learning management system. Also, the ability to integrate different assessment engines, especially those offered by publishers. Certainly, you want the system to be robust with a large amount of uptime, which is often made possible through redundant systems. You want an easy process which is automated as much as possible for students to be onboarded into the exam. You want the students to be able to schedule anytime, perhaps even using mobile devices. And then finally, you want in-depth reporting coming out of the proctoring system. Certainly one factor of a proctoring system that you want to consider is scalability. You want the ability to dial the volume up or down based on the circumstances. Certainly we learned that during the COVID era. You want to be able to talk with your live proctoring provider about their plans for increasing their staff during periods of high volume or during a crisis, such as a hurricane. You need a pricing model that scales with usage, and you need the ability of your proctoring provider and the school to scale student support based on higher levels of volume. As you are considering a proctoring solution, you need to think through, as an e-learning director, what all aspects of the student experience need to be standardized, and then plan for a proctoring system that can help with that standardization. For example, you need to give standardized descriptions of proctoring modalities across all of your courses so that students are not confused. You need policies that are consistent from course to course about how students can schedule, reschedule, or request refunds. Certainly for learners who need accommodations, there needs to be a standardized process of how they can request, schedule, and carry out the testing session with the accommodation. You need standardized verbiage about technology requirements. Students need to know how they can test their technology prior to the exam. They need to understand what can they do if they do not currently possess the minimum technology. When it comes to practices, you need to know things like how faculty and the institution can respond to anomaly reports. And finally, training should be standardized across all faculty and students. A current topic regarding proctoring is the topic of transparency. Students need to understand several key elements of the proctoring system. While the student needs to understand that proctoring is a deterrent, they don't need to be in the dark about how they are being observed. Students need to know what technologies are being used to monitor them. That could include webcam, microphone, keystroke logging, facial recognition, artificial intelligence, and geolocation. Students need to be aware of the school's policies and procedures for when an anomaly is detected, and they need to be assured that those policies and procedures will be carried out consistently from course to course. Students need to know who they can ask questions to if they have concerns about proctoring. And students need to know the options for proctoring modalities and how they can select each one. When a student's exam is proctored, there's quite a bit of information about that student that is collected. Students need to understand how that data is being secured. Students need to know what data about them is being collected, transmitted, stored, and how they can request that that data be deleted. Students and schools need to know how they would be notified in the event of a data breach. And schools need to understand how long the proctoring provider is protecting the security of the exam content. Finally, you need a proctoring system that gives you options when it comes to cost. Who will pay for the proctoring services? Will it be the students, the school, or some combination of both? If the students are required to pay for some or all of the proctoring service, how do they pay that vendor? Or do they pay the school through a fee? If a proctoring professional is paid, how is that money transmitted? And if the school pays a vendor, what is that payment schedule? Is it monthly, quarterly, by semester, or annually? All of these things need to be discussed in advance so that a system that is equitable for everyone involved can be provided. Thank you for considering these factors that should be addressed when your school is considering a proctoring solution. Here are a couple of links to articles that discuss these factors in more depth.